him another round of applause.
Oh, good. Thank you. Darn leg. You can't be mad at your own leg, can you? That's not very smart. You know, I learned something, again, one of those little one-liners is never get mad at things. Never get mad at things. You don't get mad at your car because it doesn't start, or get mad at your crutches because they fall down, or get mad at something and kick it or hit it or talk to it with colorful words. You just never get mad at things. Another thing that I learned is never get mad at something that is a past event. Almost all of the unhappiness of mankind is unhappiness over past events. Is where something has happened, sometimes it may have happened decades ago, and people are still mad about it. They're still, the word that the psychologist uses is mulling. They're still mulling over something that happened many years ago. And so one of my rules is never get upset about something that you can't change. And you can't change a past event. So learn from a past event and then focus all of your attention forward on the future and what you're going to do about that. And that will eliminate most negativity in human life. Just let things go. But I think you probably knew all that. Do you know that I've read hundreds and hundreds of books on spiritual development. One of the things which I read is that Jesus would, if only for his admonition to forgive 70 times 7, would have been the greatest spiritual teacher in history, because that lies at the core of virtually all unhappiness, is the inability to forgive. Sometimes I do a discussion of that in a seminar. People come up to me and say, that changed their life. That 5 minutes about forgiveness changed their lives, because they've been not forgiving for so long. And as soon as you forgive, it's like all the lights go on and all the darkness disappears. Interesting. That's not this subject. I don't want to get sidetracked. Damn. Okay. Total business mastery. Going on. Now, and that's your homework assignment, by the way. The last assignment is to go through each area of your life where you're experiencing stress of any kind, and ask yourself, if you were not now in that situation, would you get into it? And if the answer is no, get out of it and get on with the rest of your life, because it can't be saved. Okay, so session 1, become a great leader. And you knew this from John Maxwell when he was here, and that is his great specialty. But I've written, in the last 2 years, I've written 14 books on leadership for the American Management Association, which are distributed worldwide, small books. They're called the Personal Success Series. Plus, I've written 5 other large books with 5 other major publishers. So I know a little bit about leadership. My approach to leadership is very practical. Do this. Don't do this. Do this. Do that. In this situation, do that. So I teach very, very practical things. Hiring, delegation, supervision, leadership, strategy, planning, marketing, things like that. So I come from the practical side. So your personal leadership ability is the major limit on what you can achieve. Whenever a company or organization gets into any trouble, the first thing they do is they replace the leader. They don't replace the staff on the loading dock. They replace the leader, because it's the leader's ability to provide leadership that is really critical. And so you always start at the beginning. And if you're not happy with your business today, who's in charge of your business? One of the things I learned about, which I will talk about in a second session, from Drucker said, you never complain about your staff, because you're the one who put them there. And if you didn't put them there, you're the one who's keeping them there. And the bottom line is that if you have an incompetent staff member, then you have an incompetent manager. You have an incompetent leader. So whenever you're saying this person or that person or so on, you're basically saying, I am incompetent. I am incompetent. I am incompetent because I put them there and I'm keeping them there. So if you're not happy with the performance of somebody over whom you have authority, well, then your job is to have the courage and the character to step up and change the situation, because you are the leader. When my children were young, there we go, keep going, jeez. Oops. There we go. We say leadership is the most important factor for business success. When my children were young, I remember I was walking with Christina, and she was about 6 at the time. It was a turning point in our family life. She was about 6 at the time, and we were on a vacation. We came to this sidewalk that divided and went around a small lake on this resort. And it was split. And so she looked at us, and she said, "Which way should we go?" And I said to her, "Christina, you're the leader, you decide." She looked up at me like this. She looked up at Barbara like that. And she said, "Okay, we'll go this way." And for the rest of their lives, whenever there's been a decision like that, I say, "You're the leader, you decide." And they've all grown up to be leaders. They've all grown up to see themselves as responsible agents, as in charge of doing things or not doing things. And it all goes back to that one time I said, "You're the leader, you decide." But it's just like you in your work. You're the leader, you decide. If there's anything that's you're not happy with, well then, you're the leader. It's up to you to do something about it. So we say leadership is the ability to get results. In these 19 books that I've written, you hear all these things about leaders leading great organizations and so on. I just say that you can break it down to getting results. And what this means is that you can be a leader with no followers. Is you don't have to have a staff. If you step up and accept responsibility for results, at that minute you become a leader. My little girl became a leader when she chose the route that the family was going to go on their family walk. And she always saw herself as a leader ever after. So it's just the ability to get results. And whenever something needs to be done and you step up and accept responsibility and get results or make things happen, you become a leader. And the whole purpose of leadership training, which I've had a lot of experience with, is to train people to make better decisions, to be better leaders. So we say leaders have a clear vision of the future. They did 3,300 studies of leaders going back to 600 years before Christ, to Cyrus the Great of the Persian Empire. And they found that there were about 54 qualities that leaders have. And I have the book, by the way, with the 54 qualities laid out sequentially and how they were developed and what they mean. But also, they found that there were 2 qualities that every single one of these studies had in common. And number one is they had a vision. I was just reading something upstairs from Harvard. I subscribed to it. And it was talking about the major mistakes that new executives make right from the beginning. I read it at lunchtime, and it said the first thing they do is they try to establish a vision before they've even got a picture of the company or the organization. Our vision is going to be this. We're going to do that. And that's why they suggest they always take time to get more information, do their due diligence, find out where the organization is and where it's going before they start to articulate a vision. But that's your job. Now, a clear vision of the future, when I do strategic planning, I do an exercise called idealization. And idealization is, I say, imagine that you had a magic wand, and you could wave this magic wand, and this organization could be perfect in every way. How would it be different from today if it was perfect in every way? And what would be the first step that you would take to create that perfect organization? When I do personal strategic planning for large groups of people, I say, imagine your life is like an organization, and you could wave a magic wand and make your life perfect in every way. Make your family life perfect. Make your health perfect. Make your career perfect. How would it be different from today? And what would you do differently? And what's the first step you would take? And I say everything in life begins with the first step. Leaders take the first step. Because there's always danger that you will fail, that it won't work, that it will cost you time and money and emotion. So what most people do is they dodge making that decision. They avert it. They hold it back. They wait. They want more information. Indecisiveness is a real killer as a leader because people need you to make those decisions because only you can make certain decisions. If you don't make them, no one else can make those decisions. So everything just paralyzes. It just stops. So leaders have a clear vision of the future. And the second quality that they have is they have the courage to take action with no guarantee of success. Everybody wants a guarantee of some kind. The 80-20 rule, the bottom 80% of people are obsessed with security, safety and security, some kind of assurance that all will be well if you make a decision where you can never give that kind of a guarantee. So developing a vision of the future is really important. And one of the things that I have found, and again, I've worked with 1,000 equivalent to Fortune 500 companies all over the world. I mean, big companies. And when I talk to them about courage, I say the very best way to develop a vision is to develop it in harmony with everyone else. If our organization was perfect, what would it look like? And how would it be different from today? And then have everybody agree, because there's a direct one-to-one relationship between how much people discuss the vision, the future of the organization, and how committed they are to make it into reality, how creative they are about making it a reality, how dedicated they are to the company. Now, when you think of a vision, what I have found, and again, I spent the equivalent of 3 hours a day for 50 years, 150,000 hours studying these subjects. And one of the things I found is the very best vision that you can have is the vision to be the best. If you're just wanting to really get down to the simple terms, is your goal is to be the best, is to have everybody aspire to being the best in what you do. And then what you do is you reverse engineer and you say, what is the best? If we were the best in this industry, what would we look like? What would we do differently? What results would we get? What would our customers say if we were the best? People love to work for an organization that is the best, that is striving to be the best, that is recognized as the best. So think about that. Now, one of the other things that I discovered is that everything that applies to leadership applies to you as an individual, as a person. And so you ask yourself, if you want to be a leader, one of your aspirations must be to be the best as well, to be really excellent at what you do, because this is completely under your own control. And if you do not have this vision of excellence, then nobody else can have it, because it all starts with you. Earl Nightingale was famous for saying that morale, you do not raise morale in an organization, morale trickles down from the top. So it always starts with the person at the top. As they say, the fish rots from the head, which may or not be a good example. Huh? So here we go, the 7 responsibilities of leadership. And now I tell you, I've studied this for years and years. I have selected these and found out what they were, and then I've written them down and taught them, and I keep keeping current. I probably did 2-3 hours of reading in the last 24 hours on leadership and management. So, and what I found is that there are 7 that I discovered, 7 responsibilities. These are things you're responsible for. And this was many years ago, and I've never seen these 7 contradicted or added to or subtracted from. These are the big 7. You give yourself a grade of 1 to 10, and if you're weak in any one of these, your entire position as a leader will be weak as well. So number 1 is to set and achieve business goals. Your job is to set and achieve business goals. They did a study of why it was that Fortune 500 executives were let down by their boards of directors. The great majority were let down because, were fired or replaced because they did not get the goals that they were supposed to. They were hired to achieve a certain goal, and they weren't able to do it. So they had to be replaced by someone else who would. I was just watching that Civil War documentary by Ken Burns on the Civil War, and they were talking about how Lincoln, one after another, had to replace his generals because they just could not win battles. They just did not have the courage or the intelligence or the boldness or to win battles. And he kept replacing generals until he found one who would win. And when they asked Lee what he feared the most in the Civil War, he said, I fear that Lincoln will find a general who's better than I am. And the war just continued to grind on and on and on until they picked Grant. And Grant had a particular view toward warfare that enabled him to defeat any of the Southern generals. Really interesting, because he was able to achieve the goal, bring the war to a conclusion. The second, so one of the things you have to ask is, what are our goals? And if you know me, you know I'm a fanatic about goals. What exactly are our goals? In the Cambridge University has just done a study on leadership. And I don't want to get off the track here, but what they did is for 22 years, they studied 20,000 companies, more than 20,000 companies, in about 20 countries. And they took a whole series of qualities that top companies and leaders have, and they narrowed them down to 3. And they say this research, they had 150 researchers. They said this research is going to become the crowning business research of the first part of the 21st century, and maybe for the rest of the 21st century. The study has not even been published yet, only reviews of the study. I call it the Golden Triangle. They said there are 3 critical factors that predict more of business success and personal success than anything else. And I've been teaching these. I went back in my workbooks and I found that I've been teaching these years and years ago. And number 1 is very clear goals and objectives for the company, for each division of the company, and for each person in the company. Everyone knew exactly what they were expected to do, what their goals were. Number 2 was very clear measures and standards. So everyone knew exactly how their work was going to be measured and how they would be graded in terms of quality, satisfaction. And number 3, the third quality, was clear schedules and deadlines. Those 3 keep coming back. And I've started working over the last couple of years with different companies with these, and they say it's absolutely astonishing. You can get a company completely organized and get it just literally on the road and moving forward just simply by clarifying those 3 things. My favorite word, I heard Howard using this word, my favorite word in life and in business is clarity. And so your great responsibility as a leader is to make sure that everybody is crystal clear about what the goals are for each person and how they are to be measured so people know the standards and when they're due. And you owe this. It's one of the highest responsibilities that you as a leader owe to your staff, is they are entitled to know these things. And they did a survey a couple of years ago. I'm just pulling stuff from all over the place. And they asked people, employees, more than 10,000 of them, can you think of the very best manager you ever had? And they said, yes. They said, write down his name. And then why was this the very best manager you ever had? And the answers were common, right across businesses, industries, levels of experience, age, everything. 2 things. Number 1, I always knew exactly what he or she expected me to do. Whenever I went into work in the morning, I was clear what I was supposed to do and when and how it would be measured. And number 2, I felt that the manager cared about me as a person more than just as an employee, which is what Howard was talking about in terms of a company that has a family-like climate internally. So those are the 2 big ones, is clarity. And it must be, and that's why taking time to talk over the work with your staff, one-on-one and as a group, is one of the finest and smartest and most helpful things you can do. So everybody knows exactly what you want them to do, and when, and how, and by what date and how it will be measured. So here's the second responsibility that you have as a leader. Give yourself a score of 1 to 10. One of the exercises, I was doing this with a group of company leaders, a national company. I said, I'd like to introduce you to a game. And let me tell you what the game is, and then you tell me if you'd like to play. And remember we talked about the big 3, that each person has 3 things that are more important than anything else and more valuable. So what I'd like you to do, I say, is write down the names of everybody who reports to you, and next to each name, write down the 3 things that you expect them to do in order of importance. What's their number 1 responsibility? What's number 2, and so on. And then you give me your list of names, and you stay here, and I will go and I will sit down with each of your staff, and I will ask them their answers to the same questions. What are the 3 most important tasks you're expected to do? And how is it measured and when? And if their answers are the same as your answers, then you get to keep your job. How many people want to play keep your job? I have offered this game all over the world in companies, high and big and small, and I've never found a single executive who wants to play the game. Because not a single executive is confident that their staff know why they're on the payroll, what they're expected to do. Interesting. So this is the starting point of leadership. We don't have to get off in the mountains and so on. What we have to do is make sure that each person knows what they're supposed to do and when and how it'll be measured. If you do that, you can double the productivity of your whole darn company almost overnight. So, number 2 is to market and innovate. Continually seek faster, better, cheaper, easier ways to create and keep customers. Now, I'm going to come back to this a little bit later. I'm going to go fast, but basically, the purpose of a business is to market and innovate. It's to market the product and to find faster, better ways to do it. If you have a company that is successful, is they're doing these 2 well. If you have a company that's in trouble, they're doing one or both of them poorly. So you say market and you see the role of a business is to create and keep a customer. Profits, the purpose of a business, profits are the result of creating and keeping customers in a cost-effective way. So that's number 1. Number 2 is how do you measure business success? And the answer is customer satisfaction. And then how do you measure customer satisfaction? And the answer is repeat business. And that's the only way to generate profits in a business. And so, in marketing and innovating, the only way you measure if you're doing it properly is profits. The company is growing. And so your purpose of the business is to market and innovate in a creative way. And if ever you have a problem of any kind, I'll come back to this later. I love this stuff. I can spend all day.